Hey guys, my name is David East, and today we're going to be making a cool Google Maps styler application with jQuery. And then at the end, we're going to hook it in with the Design-Modo affiliate program. If you're not familiar with Design-Modo's affiliate program, let me start out by showing you one success story. It doesn't matter if you're a designer, a developer, or anybody else in the tech space. If you've worked on a project before that incorporates flat design, you've probably been to flaTUIcolors.com. This awesome website works as a color palette with the colors provided by Design-Modo's Flat UI framework. So all you have to do is click on a color, the color expands, but it copies the hexadecimal format by default to your clipboard. So if you were to paste, you would have the hex value for the green emerald color. This may be a simple tool, but it's extremely valuable, and it's worked out very well for its author. Through the Design-Modo affiliate program, he's earned himself about $1,000 a month. This website was so successful that Design-Modo themselves did an interview with the author, Ahmed Sulik. So right now you might be wondering, well, how do I sign up for an affiliate program? To do so is quite easy. You can just create an account with Design-Modo, and once it's created, you can sign up for the affiliate program as well. And then you'll get this link right here, and every time someone clicks and buys something from it, you'll get 25% of that sale. So getting down to the nitty-gritty, today we're going to be making an application that leverages the Styled Maps feature of Google Maps. As you can see in this example right here, highways, local roads, and other parts of the map are specifically styled to give this map its own custom look. So now equipped with the knowledge of the affiliate program, I have an idea. I can create an application that allows users to create their own custom map styles with the Flat UI colors. So let's pull up a copy of Flat UI Pro and get started. So right now I'm in Sublime Text. You can use whatever editor or IDE you feel comfortable with. We're just going to be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. One of the awesome things about Flat UI is that it comes with this template.html file. And this is just a great way to get going real quickly. It already has all the assets you need linked to the file. So the first thing we're going to need to do to work with Google Maps is to reference the file. Now it's not something that you download. It's hosted by Google and you just reference it in your document. So here in the Google Maps developers website is an example of a simple map. If we scroll down to the code example, we should see the file that we need. So right here's the script file hosted by Google. So if we just copy it in right here, we can paste it into our own local document. So at the very bottom of our page before the body tag closes, let's paste in the Google Maps file. So now we're referenced with Google Maps. However, if you're going to continuously use Google Maps, you're going to have to register with Google, and they'll give you an API key that'll give you access to Google Maps. So let's create a script block of our own. And inside of this script block is where we're going to be doing all our work. Ideally, you'd put this in a separate JavaScript file, but just for convenience sake for the screencast, we're going to put it at the bottom of the page. Now we could start creating all of our variables and functions down here, but everything we would do would be in global scope. So to avoid polluting global scope, we're going to put everything inside a self-invoking anonymous function. So what is a self-invoking anonymous function? Well, most of you probably know what a function is. So we have a function here called sayHello, and we return hello. We call it just by saying sayHello. And what executes the call is these two parentheses right here. So since now we know that it's these parentheses that call the function, we could create an anonymous function, which is a function that doesn't have a name, and it can be called automatically. So we'll open up some parentheses, and we'll write an anonymous function inside of it. And an anonymous function is a function that doesn't have a name. So right here, this function is just like this function, except it doesn't have a name. So we could even return hello inside of here. But since this function doesn't have a name, how would you call it? To call the sayHello function, we just do sayHello and then the parentheses that trigger the function. Well, to create the self-invoking part of the self-invoking anonymous function, we'll just trigger the function with these parentheses at the end of it. So now when this script block gets hit, and then this part gets interpreted by the browser, it will immediately fire this function. To prove this to you, let's remove the return hello and let's just console.log hello. And we can get rid of this code down here below. So here in Chrome, we'll open up the JavaScript console, and we can see that we have hello logged out to the console. If we click where it's referenced at, we can see that we have our self-invoking anonymous function right here and that we're console logging hello. So we know now that it's these two parentheses automatically fire out this function, hence the self-invoking part of the anonymous function. So now every time we write something inside of this self-invoking anonymous function, we won't have to worry about polluting the global scope, and everything we do will be contained inside of here. Another great part about the self-invoking anonymous function is that you can import other libraries and not worry about other conflicts with their names. And this can be very useful with jQuery. So up here, when this function, we can pass through the $sign as one of the parameters, and then this function gets called with jQuery. And essentially what this is saying is when this page is loaded, let's call this self-invoking anonymous function with the window.jQuery, since jQuery is a global object, and jQuery will represent this $sign right here. So if $sign means something else other than jQuery outside of this function, it won't affect anything inside of this function. We can work with $sign and be completely confident that it's jQuery. But let's create our map now. So we want to do something similar to this simple map page. So let's scroll down to the bottom and see what they're doing here. We've already copied this reference script file, but below the reference script file, there's another script block. And inside of this script block, they're creating a map object once the page is finished loading. So let's copy this code into our local file, and we'll go through what it means. So let's paste in the code. So we have this function called initialize right here. And inside of initialize, it creates map options. So what the zoom of the map will be, what the center will be, and the type of map. And then they create the map object, which gets an element with the ID of map canvas and initializes with these map options. And then down here, Google uses its own library to attach a listener for when the window loads, and it'll then call this initialize function. Now this is a nice way to do it if you're referencing your JavaScript in the head, because this map canvas element won't exist if it's firing from the head. But we're firing at the bottom of the page, so we don't have to worry about this map element existing. So we can do things a little bit differently. So let's comment out this code and just use it as a reference. So let's create our map object. We'll create a variable called map, and then we're going to use the Google Maps library. So we're going to say a new google.maps.map, and we want to get an element that represents our map. So we haven't created that yet, but let's just pretend we have. So we could use jQuery to select the map element, but we just want the pure element. So let's just use native JavaScript. So we'll do document.getElementById, and we'll pass in map. And next goes in the map options. So we'll just use what's below. So we'll set the zoom to 8, and we'll copy in the center right here, and this will set the center to Australia, and we'll also copy in the map type ID just to get a regular road map. So one thing you might be noticing is that we're calling google.maps.map. So this is just like jQuery, where Google is the keyword. And you might be thinking, can't we import the Google library just as we're doing with jQuery? And the answer would be yes, we can. So we can provide another parameter to our function, call it Google. And when we call our function, since Google is a global object, we can just call it with Google as well. So now we know that Google inside of here will mean the Google that we're referencing from the maps.googleapis.com. So now we're just seconds away from having a map on our page. All we need to do now is create an element with the ID of map. So let's go up to our body, and instead of this div with the class of container, we'll move the text and we'll give it an ID of map. And for the time being, inside of our head tag, we'll create a style tag, and we'll target map. We'll set its height to 400 pixels, and its width will be 100% by default. So here's our local file. We have ourselves a map, but one thing you might be noticing is that there's some artifacts on the page over here, and it doesn't look quite right. And that's from the way that Twitter Bootstrap and Google Maps play together. But there is a simple fix to this. So back in our style tag, we're going to target our map again, but then we're going to target the images inside of the map, and we're going to set the max width to none. So now back in our local document, we have our scrolling bar, we have our street view person, and none of those artifacts exist on the page anymore. So now that we can create a map on the page, let's see how we can go about doing some custom styling. So let's take a look at the API website at the simple styled maps portion. So we'll scroll down to the JavaScript examples, and just like before, we see an initialize function, and then we'll see this array stored into a variable called feature ops, and this is an array of objects. As you can see down here, there's an element type, and then there's stylers. So in this case, this element type is for the labels, and the styler turns the visibility of the labels off. So this would be roads, cities, and places like that. And then this feature type is water, and the styler sets the color. So in this case, this color will set the water to red, as we can see in the map above here. Then down here at the bottom, they create their map options, their map, Then they create a map type that represents the styles they created in this object. So let's copy in this array of styles and we'll work with it inside of our local document. Let's get rid of the stub code and copy in our new code. So the simplest way to set these styles is to call our map variable, and we'll call a function on there called setOptions. And setOptions takes in an object, and we want to change the styles, and we're going to set it to the feature ops variable. So as we can see in our local copy, we have the same styles set from the API website. So we can easily change some things. We can say that we want the labels to be on, and we want this water to be black. So our changes were applied. Now it's not the prettiest thing ever, but we can see how easy it is to set styles in Google Maps. So the basic idea behind the styling is that we have our initial object, which represents the styling for the map. So this is the hue of the map, the visibility, so it sets a simplified version, and then other options such as gamma and weight. Then below, we have options that represent the types that we want to style. So this object sets the labels, signified by the element type property. And then the styler's property, which is just an array of objects, will set the visibility on or off. And then the same goes down here, is that we can set the color of the water. So let's say we wanted to set the land. Well, let's copy this object in, and let's provide the keyword for land, which is landscape. And let's say we want to make this landscape all white. So as we can see, we have a light landscape with a red hue, our labels are visible, and we have black water. So now that we know how to create styles in Google Maps, let's create a website that allows the users to select flat UI colors to create custom maps. So back in our local document, let's create a sidebar where the users can select the options for the map. So we'll change this map so it has a width of 64%, and we'll give the sidebar a width of 36%. We'll set the position of the sidebar to fixed, and we'll give it a height of 100%. And just for the meantime, we'll give it a background of black so we can see it easier. And then we'll float our map to the right. So now on our page, we see that we have a sidebar where we can select our options. And then the idea behind this page is that we'll select an option in the sidebar and it will automatically update this map. So first, let's remove this background of black because that page, let's be honest, is pretty ugly. And let me show you some styles that I created myself. So here we have .turquoise, .greensea, .sunflower, and as you can see, this is just the flat UI color names, and this is all their hex values. And down here, there's a dash text for each one, and it'll set the text to that color. So when we reference this file, we can use these styles and we can quickly apply these colors to our page. So let's reference the file. And all of these files are located in the source file for this video. So now if I want this sidebar to have the color of wet asphalt, I can just apply a class of wet asphalt. And as you can see in our page, we've changed the color to wet asphalt. So we'll create an H3 and we'll just call this map styles, and we'll give this a class of turquoise text. So here on our page, here's our H3 and its text color is turquoise. So having these classes allows us to rapidly set these elements to the colors we need. Now I wouldn't really recommend using this for a larger scale application because you can really fragment the color scheme. But when you're quickly developing and you just want to see the color change, this is a great way to go. So now in our sidebar, we're going to want to provide a way for the user to change parts of the map, such as the water, the landscape, or roads. So rather than just providing them a text box to input a hex or an RGBA value in, we should provide them some sort of interface that allows them to select from the collection of flat UI colors. And this sounds like a perfect job for a drop-down list. So using the Flat UI Pro documentation, we can see how we can use a drop-down list to select certain values. So we can copy and paste example code in and just work from there. Fortunately, I already have something prepared to copy in. So essentially what this is, it's a button group. And the button group has its drop-down arrow, it has the main button, and it has a drop-down list where you can provide your items right here. So here on our page, we can see this is our drop-down list. However, nothing drops down because we don't have any items. So we could go inside of this unordered list and we could provide all the colors inside the Flat UI collection. But then if we want to style the hue of the map, we'll have a button group for this. And then if we want to style the road, we'll have a button group for that. And that sounds kind of tedious to have a whole entire list items of all the colors for each one. So to simplify this, I made a jQuery plugin called Color Drop, which is included in the source materials. So inside of our JavaScript folder, we can see that there is a plugin called Flat UI-Color Drop. And essentially what this plugin does is it appends all the flat UI colors to the button group for us. So if we reference the JavaScript file, we can then call it. So we can select this div by the class of button group, and all we have to do is call color drop. So now on our page we have our same old button group, but this time when we open it, we have all of the flat UI colors as options. So now if we select one, it'll change to the color and show the hex value. Now you're free to use this color drop plugin in any way you want, but a little disclaimer, I wrote it kind of quickly, so you may encounter a couple bugs. So now that we know how to select our colors, let's just work on the interface. So up here we have this style tag, which we're putting all our styles in right now, and that can get kind of messy, so let's create our own map.css file inside the CSS folder. We'll paste in these styles, and we'll save it as map.css. And since now that we have an external style sheet, let's reference it. So this first dropdown inside of our sidebar, we'll have it set up to style the hue of the map. So here on our page, we can see that we have a hue and a way to pick the colors. But right now you might be screaming at me saying, this looks horrible, this is not padded to the left, this maybe should be centered, and yeah, let's take care of that right now. And also, let's get rid of this really ugly map style and just have it set up to the default one. So let's go down here and we're just going to comment out the set options, so no options will be set. And up here in our sidebar, we're going to want to center this H3 and provide some padding right here. But before we get really far, we might want to provide some scaffolding for these drop-down lists, so we could put them inside of a UL. And we'll give this UL a class of sidebar options. So let's style the sidebar options. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we'll just separate it from the top a little. So we'll give it a margin top of 25 pixels. And we'll set the H3 and we'll do a text align of center. And above all this, we're going to want to turn the list style type off for the unordered list. So we're going to say list style type is none. So this way we won't have any bullet points. So now on our page, things are looking a little bit better. So let's focus on providing all the options for the user to change the map. So we already have the hue, but we're also going to want them to be able to change the roads, the landscape, parks, and water. So let's copy these elements and change them accordingly. So let's copy this LI and let's change it for roads. And then we'll do the same for water. We'll do it for parks as well as landscape. So now in our view, we have all of our options. But one thing you might notice if you try to select a color is that it cuts off and it doesn't give us all our options. So we're probably going to want to provide a height and an overflow for this drop-down menu. So the drop-down menu is this UL with a class of drop-down menu. So we can target this drop-down menu in our external CSS file and change the height. So we'll say .drop-down menu. We'll set its height to 250 pixels. We'll set its overflow to hidden, and then we'll set its overflow Y to scroll. So now back on our page, if we select the options, we can see that we've set the drop-down menu's height to 250 pixels, and we can scroll to see all of the options. So now there's a couple things left for us to do. The first thing is we're going to want to change this map's height to be the height of the page. So we're going to need to write a little bit of JavaScript to do that. The second thing is that we're going to want to actually have these color pickers do something. So every time we change a color, we're going to want this to update the map immediately. So below where we're initializing the color drops, let's target the map and let's set its height to the height of the window. So now back in the browser, we have a map with the height of the page. So now we just need to focus on changing the map as we select the colors. So how do we go about changing the style of the map once a new option's been selected? So this color drop plugin takes in an object of options, and one of them is the onChange event we want to fire. So let's just say we want to alert hello every time we change an option. So in the page, let's select an option. And as you can see, we get an alert for hello. So we could create a function that gathers the new value that was selected and plugs it into this object right here, and then sets that object to the map. But before we even get that far, we have to set up all of the feature types that we want to style. So to save some time, I'm pasting in the options that we need to style. So we have the initial styler for the map, which will style the hue. And then we have an element type for the labels, and this will set whether or not we want them on. And then we have one for road, water, POI, which stands for point of interest, which will style things such as parks, and then the landscape. And as you can see, we have null for the colors, and null will provide the default color. So every time we change an option, we want to restyle the map. So we could create a function that knows how to change the map styles every time a new option's been selected, and we could wire that to the onChange event of the color drop. So let's create a function and we'll call it change map styles. And inside of this change map styles function, we're going to want to set this feature ops object. So now everywhere where we see null, we're going to want to set that as a color from the color drop. To get the selected color from the color drop, we need to get the specific color drop by an ID or some specific selector and then call the value function that's provided in the plugin. So right now, all of our color drops just have classes and they don't have any IDs. So let's provide IDs for them. So for hue, we'll call it hue list, and we'll paste this down here and we'll call it road list and water list, park list, and landscape list. So right up here, let's get the color for the hue. So we'll say hue color, and we'll select the hue list and we'll call color drop on it, but we're going to pass through the argument val as a string. And what this will do is it'll call the value function of the color drop plugin and return the current value that was selected for the hue. So what we can do is we can alert hue color, and every time a color drop is changed, we'll call changed map styles. So let's change the hue to turquoise, and as you can see, we get the value for turquoise alerted to us. So we know how to collect the colors, so let's do that for the rest of them. So we have road color, and we can save time by copy and pasting this in. So we have road color, and then we need to do water color, and we also need park color, as well as landscape color. So now that we have these color values, we can assign them to this object. So where this null is, we'll change that to hue color, and where this road is, we'll change that to road color, and where this water color, and where point of interest is, we're going to have that be the park color, and landscape will be landscape color. So now we have our object styled, but we need to set it to the map. So let's get rid of this alert, and then down here we'll copy in this map.setOptions. And so now the map will set the options and do the styles of our feature ops object. But this won't work because map isn't anything inside of this function. So we can pass through a map as a variable, and then down here at the bottom, we can call change map styles and pass through map, which is created right up here. And we're going to need to do the same for the onChange and the color drop. So we'll pass map through, but map isn't created until down there. So let's create map first. So now on our page, let's apply our styles. So let's create a hue of orange. And so now we see we have a map with an orange hue. And then let's style the roads to be a pumpkin color. So now we have a dark orange road. And let's say we want the water to be Belize Hole. And let's change the parks to be Nephritis. And we'll change the landscape to be wet asphalt. So now we'll zoom out a little bit, and we can see that we have a nice little map full of flat UI colors. So after we would do some testing, we'd have a website ready for an alpha stage. We don't have a ton of features yet, but we don't want to slam all these features in at first and see what fits. Right now we're providing the users the ability to style the main parts of the map. Later on, maybe we can add other things as we see fit, but for now, this will do. So since we're ready for the alpha stage, we're obviously going to want to incorporate DesignModo's affiliate program to generate some cash flow. So below this map styles header, we can provide our affiliate link. So in our sidebar, let's wrap the H3 inside of a header tag because it's the header of our sidebar. And below our H3, let's create a label. So we'll have a span, and we'll create a class of label, and we'll say label primary. And inside of the span, we'll say powered by, and we'll have our link for Flat UI Pro. And I'm going to give it a class of clouds text to make sure that its text is that off-white color. So now we want to make sure that this label is centered just like our H3 is. So let's go into our map.css file, and instead of saying the sidebar H3 text align center, let's change it to a header. So now here on our page, we have our label for powered by Flat UI Pro. And Flat UI Pro is a dead link, so let's provide our affiliate link. So here in my DesignModo account, I have my affiliate link. So I'm just going to copy it through, and I'm going to paste it into the application. So now instead of this hashtag, I have my affiliate link. So now if the user comes through and clicks, it takes them to the DesignModo shop with my affiliate link up here, and if they buy something, I'll get 25% of the sale. So that's a nice way to generate a little bit of cash flow, and you get to create a fun project at the same time. So in this video, we learned to wrap everything inside a self-invoking anonymous function so we don't pollute the global namespace. And then we learned how to set up Google Maps by creating a google.maps.map object and assigning it to a div on the page. We also used the color drop plugin, which is just a custom UI for selecting flat UI colors. And we wired up the onChange event to change map styles every time the user selects a new color. And to create a map style, we need to create an array of objects that have either an element type or a feature type, and we set stylers that control things such as visibility and color. And then we can use the map.setOptions and set the styles to the array of objects we created. So I hope you have a good understanding of how Google Maps works as well as the affiliate program. If you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, or if you have anything that you think needs to be explained in more detail, just let me know and I'll be able to follow up with you.